Is Trump's peace plan dead already? Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. I believe the answer is yes. And frankly, I think any prospect of a long-lasting peace as a result of this plan was never a reality to begin with. Already we're seeing problems emerge. In today's video, we're going to talk about what's happening right now, what's likely to happen next, and how all of this fits into God's prophetic picture for the end times. So let's start with this right here. So this is from the U.S. Sun from yesterday. It says, Trump warns Hamas, quote, will have no choice but to go in and kill them if carnage continues in Gaza. Doesn't sound like much of a peace plan, but that's all right. We'll read on and we'll try to put the pieces together and see what's happening here. So this says, Donald Trump has warned Hamas he will, quote, go in and kill them if bloodshed persists in the Gaza Strip. His fierce warning seeks to end violence that has continued to plague Gaza, with Hamas executing collaborators and killing rivals in deadly gun battles. Trump's feelings on the violence seem to have hardened significantly. He said on Tuesday that Hamas's activities, quote, didn't bother me much, suggesting the terror group had simply taken out a couple of gangs that were very bad. Then he vowed that the U.S. would force them to disarm, perhaps violently, if they refused to do so. And writing on Truth Social on Thursday, Trump insisted he will have no choice but to go in guns blazing if things don't settle down. Meanwhile, Israel has threatened to resume fighting and shatter the peace deal after Hamas said it was unable to find any more hostage bodies. The terror group was supposed to hand over 28 bodies by Monday, as the last 20 living captives were returned after 2 traumatic years. But 19 Israeli dead remained in the blitzed coastal strip amid fears Hamas is keeping bargaining chips and playing sick games with families desperate for closure. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu threatened to resume fighting at a state event commemorating the October 7th attacks yesterday. He said, quote, the struggle is not over, but one thing is clear today. Anyone who raises a hand against us already knows he will pay a very heavy price for his aggression. We are determined to complete the victory that will shape the order of our lives for many years. So he is determined to complete the victory, but guys, as we'll see, this is impossible to do under the peace plan. But it is not impossible to do if the goal is to complete the victory and continue your campaign against Hamas. So let's read this in National Security Journal. It says the Gaza peace deal has one huge problem. Hamas won't disarm. And that, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? We had I believe we had a question on this in the Q&A at the beginning of the month. And someone asked about this, and I said, terrorists are terrorists. They're not just going to simply lay down their arms and walk away and go, okay, well, that didn't really work out the way we planned. We'll go on to living normal lives of peace, right? That's generally not how that happens. So this says a new U.S.-backed peace deal for Gaza is already on shaky ground. While the initial hostage releases succeeded, the next critical phase, disarming Hamas, faces major roadblocks. Hamas is already reasserting control with a reign of terror against dissidents and has publicly rejected giving up its weapons. The plan's success is further complicated by the lack of a viable alternative government, as Israel opposes a Palestinian Authority takeover. Without a clear, enforceable process for disarmament and a plan to prevent a power vacuum, the current ceasefire is likely to collapse. And I would say almost certainly, not just likely, almost certainly. So it says, for the peace deal to hold, Hamas must not return to being a threat to Israel and the stability of the region. Now, let's point out, if Hamas stays, continues to exist, right? Which is what we would see under this current peace plan. Do you have any doubt they will not bide their time, slowly rearm, build themselves back up, and become a threat to Israel and the stability of the region? Almost certainly they will. And that is why for the peace deal is not going to hold, and why we're going to see something different entirely. So this says the war Hamas launched on October 7th, 2023 became massively destructive, involving Iranian proxies from Lebanon to Yemen. It says there are multiple layers to the challenge of disarmament. First, there needs to be a ready alternative security force in Gaza. Having various militias and clans vying for power is not in the interest of Gaza. It's worth recalling that Hamas did not launch the October 7th attack by itself. It worked with other terrorist groups, such as Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Disarming Hamas, then, is just one part of removing arms from extremists in Gaza. There are other groups waiting to step into the power vacuum. So it's not just Hamas that poses a threat to Israel. It's Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a whole bunch of other groups. It's Hezbollah in the north. It's Iran. And all of its proxies. We see many threats on Israel's border that have to be dealt with. And you don't deal with those by simply declaring peace and burying your head in the sand. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think this is just a temporary ceasefire. This says disarming Hamas, then, is just one. Well, we already read that. It says another challenge of disarmament is verifying and defining it. Hamas began the October 7th war with tens of thousands of rockets and missiles. It had 24 battalions of men with large numbers of RPGs and other munitions. Although Hamas has lost many fighters, it still has many more. Does disarmament mean that it lays down its heavy weapons, but keeps some of its rifles and handguns? Even if it did hand over heavier weapons and rockets, who would verify the process is complete? Hamas doesn't appear likely to give these weapons to Israel. A security force capable of receiving the weapons seems to be needed. And yes, it does, and we won't see it. This isn't going to happen. Hamas is not going to disarm. They're biding time. And I believe Israel and the United States needed cover in a PR war and to be able to say, here's an opportunity for peace. And look, Hamas did not take it. And the next step is they're going to have complete victory, which is what we just read Netanyahu say. So let's go back in time to before this peace plan was signed to see what was said then, because I think it's eye-opening. It tells us what is going to happen. So this is from Zero Hedge back in September 4th. It says White House would greenlight West Bank annexation by Israel. So that's something entirely different than Gaza. But buried in here, we have this. It says President Trump only put the following message out Wednesday on Truth Social. Tell Hamas to immediately give back all 20 hostages, not 2 or 5 or 7, and things will change rapidly. It will end. Essentially, he's standing by Netanyahu, who has stated time and again that the war will carry on until it ends with the complete eradication of Hamas, and to ensure it can never return to rule the Strip again. Having a peace plan with Hamas where you're counting on Hamas voluntarily disarming themselves and saying, who would have thought we were wrong all this time? We're just going to go about normal lives. That is not going to happen. That does not lead to the complete eradication of Hamas and make sure that they can never emerge again. And that is the stated goal of Benjamin Netanyahu. Don't believe me? Let's go look at this other Zero Hedge article from just 2.5 weeks ago. It's titled, Israel Will Finish the Job If Hamas Doesn't Accept Trump's 20-point Gaza Plan and Board of Peace. Now, they may have accepted that, but there were conditions. It had to stay in force. It had to be abided by. If not, Israel has said they will finish the job. So this says, having finished their lengthy remarks, Trump and Netanyahu took no questions. as they left to another room to sign documents related to the 20-point peace plan for Gaza, which Trump has hailed as having the backing of key Arab allies across the region. One consistent theme of both Trump's and Netanyahu's in the Monday afternoon presser was that if Hamas does not agree, quote, then Israel will finish the job, meaning completely take over and occupy the Gaza Strip while seeking the total eradication of Hamas. For the record, I believe that is what will happen. That's going to be the next steps in this. I believe this peace plan will fall apart, and that is what we will see. It says, if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or they supposedly accepted, which is what we've seen, and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself, Netanyahu made clear, echoing remarks Trump issued just prior. Trump had made clear that all the hostages are going to be released, but several big, obvious questions remain. After several assassinations of leading Hamas officials and commanders, who is left to speak for Hamas? Is Hamas on board with any of this whatsoever? Why would they sign on to their own demise, given the 20-point plan calls for a board of peace to oversee the disarming of all Hamas militants? Despite all of this, Trump said the sides are very close with a deal and that he wants to see eternal peace in the Middle East. Again, one wonders whether Hamas militants deep inside the tunnels preparing to launch ambushes on IDF infantry columns are aware of any of this. Interestingly, Trump said he was asked to be the head of this board of peace and also mentioned the high-level participation of ex-British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Trump described that a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump will be in charge of something called the Board of Peace to oversee post-war Gaza. Tony Blair, a very good man, will be on the board. Others will be named over the next few days, he added. Does any neutral observer think Hamas or the Palestinians will actually buy into this? But again, as Trump emphasized, if Hamas does not accept, then Israel will have the absolute right and full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas. In reality, it seems this is all an elaborate scheme for the United States to simply and fully greenlight to total and permanent military takeover of Gaza, and as a way to get Arab Gulf countries on board while mitigating the ongoing international pressure, especially from Europe. As an aside, Trump frequently invoked the successes of the Abraham Accords and even mused that Iran might join one day. So guys, I believe this is the case. We've seen this as a way to hit international pressure, relieve international pressure that was being placed on Israel over Gaza, and saying, here, we've offered this peace plan, at knowing Hamas is not going to accept the terms of this plan. Hamas is not going to disarm. They're not going to relent in their commitment to destroy Israel as a nation. And so this was destined to fall apart from day one. And now a green light is given to go in and to have complete victory. What was it that we read back here? We are determined to complete the victory that will shape the order of our lives for many years. Well, how do you do that with a ceasefire peace plan that hasn't eradicated your enemy? That's not complete victory. Complete victory is eradicating your enemy, wiping them out. One side decisively winning. It's what we saw in World War II. We didn't see a ceasefire during the Battle of the Bulge and the Allies declared victory. No, you have to have complete and total victory. And that's what they've said is coming. That's what I would expect is coming in the days ahead, as I would expect to see Israel occupying Gaza. Again, I could be wrong. This is just my personal opinion, but it's based on what we've seen and what we would... Putting yourselves in the shoes of the leaders making the decisions, what other choice does Israel have facing existential threats on its border? It must eliminate those. It cannot allow those threats to fester and come back another day with new technologies and perhaps not be able to survive the initial attacks as it has in the past. So I expect to see Israel completely committed to eradicating the existential threats on its border, not just from Gaza, but from the north as well, from the west as well, from the east as well, all over the place. Every area where a threat is posed, I expect to see them committed to taking it out. And guys, if that's what we see, well, then we end up with conditions like those we read here in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 11. It says, "You will say, I will invade a land of unwalled villages. I will attack a peaceful and unsuspecting people, all of them living without walls and without gates and bars." So again, this is Ezekiel 38, chapters 38 and 39 tell us about the coming Gog of Magog invasion in the last days. And if we go to the original language, we would see that we're looking at a tranquil people, quiet and undisturbed. No doubt about it, this does not describe the modern-day nation of Israel at this time. Now, this passage, these chapters, Ezekiel 38 and 39, very clearly do describe the modern-day nation-state of Israel in the last days, gathered from all the lands where the people were scattered. Makes it very clear in the context of this passage, we're talking about the modern-day nation-state of Israel. But we've never seen the state of a tranquil people, quiet and undisturbed, since 1948 to the present. But if we see Israel committed to complete and total victory over its enemies, its immediate enemies on its borders, and it achieves that victory, then we would be in that state. And I think we're about to see that in Gaza. How that happens in other areas remains to be seen. But guys, no doubt about it, however it happens, the Bible will prove correct. Ezekiel 38 and 39 will be fulfilled to the letter. You can be sure of that. God's word is perfect. It's got a 100% track record when it comes to fulfilled Bible prophecy. So guys, those are my thoughts. That's what I think. Maybe you think differently. If so, leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. God willing, I will see you on Monday.